Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it! So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and
Jason. Good day and welcome to another episode of the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and with me, returning co-host, Jason, my brother. We did a bit of a break there. I did a couple of music episodes with some great guests, co-hosts from some big shows and networks who were very kind to come on. We had Cardiff Electric, The Floating Potato, who covered the Motley Crue album, Too Fast for Love. That was a great discussion. And then Trucker Andy from the All Apologies podcast, who came and talked about Van Halen's 1984. Jason, did you get a chance to hear any of those? Okay, roger that. So even my brother doesn't listen to the show. Okay, here we go. All right.
Boy. Oh, busted. I got lots on my plate.
Oh, sure. Sure.
Lots of things.
You and all the non-listeners who wouldn't hear the joke because they're not listening to the podcast. Yes. I appreciate the listeners who do drop in and listen, and to all those who have joined. Actually, we actually have gotten some new subscribers to the channel on YouTube and new listeners on the podcast audio feed because of these great hosts that have come on from other shows who've lent their time, and some of their listeners have joined our show. So we appreciate those who've joined our show. Thank you.
All right. We appreciate that.
Jason doesn't listen.
I would be quite interested, honestly, on the Motley Crue one more than the Van Halen one.
Okay, fair enough.
As I gotten older, maybe that Van Halen 84 just...
That's why I got to hear it. That's why I got to hear the... You'll be
I know.
Not surprised, but you'll hear what I talk about that, actually. And
oh, okay. I'll tell you what, though. I've got like 5 journal entries in my whole lifetime. One was when I was in... I believe it was grade 4. I listed my 4 favorite bands at the time. And it was ZZ Top, Motley Crue, and Van Halen.
Nice.
But maybe, these many years later, that 84 album, which was obviously very impressionable at the time when I wrote in my journal, I'm not sure if it holds up, but I believe that Too Fast for Love would.
Yeah,
be a little bit more of a fun listen. It would keep my attention a little bit longer.
I would say yes. Too Fast for Love is probably a more fun album. But you'll be surprised. I'd forgotten. Again, listen to it and you'll see there's some actual tracks. There are the non-single tracks on that album are a little bit stronger than I even remember. So I re-listen and investigate. Oh yeah, this is some actually really legit guitar work by.
Are you talking about Van Halen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know. And I know exactly what you're talking about because it's like the non-single songs are quite good.
Quite good, yeah. And it gets lost a little bit in that 80s vibe of keyboard stuff. Yeah, okay. All right, if you haven't already checked it out, folks, if you're a music lover, or if you're just curious to hear about these artists that you've heard about and our discussion on that. Okay. Jason, I'm a little bit afraid to do this one. I'm a little bit afraid because we're going to be talking about some murky area here in American history. We're going to talk about some deaths. Yes, another episode, folks, of deaths. Yeah, trigger warning. We will be talking about officially people who have unlived themselves via the S word. I think YouTube has an issue with that word for some reason. I'm not sure how it works, to be honest with you. I think it's relaxed its rules a little bit because I've heard people say the word on YouTube.
Right. Just maybe they can afford to be demonetized.
Yeah, we can't afford it. That's true. How much money we make off YouTube, man?
I think we're negative.
I think we're the negative. Yeah, we owe YouTube money for hosting. All right, we're the only people that pay the free site to upload our videos. Okay, so here we go. So across the sweep of American history, a series of haunting and premature deaths have ignited widespread suspicion, curiosity, and unease. Official accounts often attribute these tragedies to suicide, accidents, or isolated acts of violence. Yet their murky circumstances and unanswered questions have led many to wonder if darker forces, perhaps even covert government machinations, lurk beneath the surface. Some of these are whistleblowers and what have you. And at the very end of the day, at the very least, what these people were a part of, uncovering, about to release, I just find, we'll get into each story, but yeah, I find it very fascinating how it is that everyone that's involved in stuff like this ends up dead. That, like, why are they just dead? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I ask those questions all the time.
Yeah. And some names might come up that are familiar that have been accused of knocking people out. But I want to say this is all for entertainment purposes only. I don't want any government agency to off. Yeah, Jason, for the record, you and I are very happy. We have no thoughts of unaliving ourselves. If anything happens after this episode where we have been found hanging from a rafter, let it be known I did not do that to myself. Okay. I'm going to start with the first one, Jay. You ever heard of Michael Hastings?
No.
Okay. He was a fearless investigative journalist whose searing exposés shook the foundations of power, most notably forcing the resignation of General Stanley McChrystal. He was a prominent U.S. Army commander. And what did he do? So he led the forces in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010 and was a key figure in shaping counterinsurgency strategy. So far, so good. Sounds like he's a great guy. Yeah. Well, the journalist Hastings, in a 2010 Rolling Stone article, exposed General McChrystal and his aides mocking Obama administrative officials, including deriding Vice President Joe Biden as a, quote, bite me, and dismissing National Security Advisor James Jones as a, quote, clown, revealing deep tensions between the military and civilian leadership. The article triggered a major scandal that led to McChrystal's dismissal. Fair enough. In June 2013, Hastings sent cryptic emails to close colleagues and friends, including a message to BuzzFeed staff stating, quote, I'm on to a big story and need to go off the radar for a bit, end quote, while also warning a neighbor that he believed his car was being tampered with and expressing fears of FBI surveillance. His unease, Jason, was palpable. Days later, tragedy struck. What happened, Jay? His Mercedes slammed into a Los Angeles tree at breakneck speed, erupting in flames. Eyewitnesses reporting the car, through no explanation that they could find, surging to full throttle before the crash, sparking whispers of foul play. So this guy decided, Jason, to rev his car at full speed and slam into a tree. The official report deemed the fiery wreck an accident. But as you can imagine, skepticism persists, fueled by Hastings' relentless probes into U.S. military and intelligence elites, particularly his final investigation into CIA Director John Brennan, who served from 2013 to 2017 under President Obama, a polarizing figure with a 25-year CIA career, including roles as a Middle East analyst, station chief in Saudi Arabia, and Obama's counterterrorism advisor. Brennan was central to controversial policies like the CIA's drone strike program, the response to alleged Russian election interference in 2016, making him a prime target himself for scrutiny. So Hastings was reportedly working on a bombshell expose about Brennan, possibly tied to claims of targeting journalists critical of government secrets, as suggested by a leaked email from a CIA contractor. Combined with reports that Hastings believed he was under FBI investigation, this fuels speculation that his pursuit of Brennan's actions may have put him in danger. So there's our first account, Jason, of somebody who was poking around, maybe where, I don't know, that's where he shouldn't remember. We used to go to the beach, and we used to lift up rocks, and crabs would run out from when you expose the rock. Yeah. This is what I feel like Hastings was doing. He was going around lifting up rocks, and I think he got bit. What do you think, Jay? Do you think he decided off himself into a tree, or do you think something else at foul play here?
I am familiar with the story of that vehicle going into a high rate of speed, almost like it was under remote control.
Yeah.
Like they can do with planes, maybe.
He expressed he felt his car was tampered with.
Yeah.
To his friends. That's scary. Again, let's just pretend. Let's pretend this is all for entertainment purposes. Let's pretend he was investigating the drug abuse days of Motley Crue in the 80s. You know what I mean? Would his car hit a tree? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is it when he's uncovering this, he crashes his car into a tree, into a fire explosion? But if he was uncovering...
Yeah, basically a mundane entertainment story that we've all heard 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, he would probably still be here. But we also hear 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. Why is it always people who are trying to investigate governments
end up dead?
They see in the most weird ways.
Maybe he's just he's a bad driver. He has a new car. Maybe he's decided to, with this respective investigative journalist, decided to have I'm going to go speed racing at night. So we should say, what we're going to do for our worst pick is we're going to pick what we think is the most unlikely. Let's pretend all of these could be true. Which one is the least likely to be true? Like in that, so these are conspiracies. Yes, these are this is like a conspiracy episode because we're going to get the official cause or the official story of what happened. So the official story here, Jay, is that he crashed his car. End of story. That's it. That's the official story. So would this be the worst likely scenario that maybe the government did, like somebody in? And when we say the government, we're just speaking the dark government or the people behind the scenes. Who knows?
Deep state.
Deep state. Yes, there you go. Okay, so there's our first story. That's a big one, but the next one is a little bit more commonly known. Jay, I think you got this one.
We're all familiar with Jeffrey Epstein. So a wealthy financier and convicted sex offender met a chilling end in a high-security Manhattan jail cell, sparking one of the most contentious mysteries of our time. Awaiting trial on charges of sex trafficking minors, Epstein, whose web of connections ensnared high-profile figures like former U.S. President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and Victoria's Secret billionaire Leslie Wexner, was found dead in August 2019. His death officially ruled a suicide by hanging. Yet, this explanation has been met with fierce skepticism. Epstein's ties to some of the world's most powerful individuals, coupled with glaring lapses in jail security, have fueled rampant conspiracy theories of meticulously orchestrated assassination to shield elite from exposure, disabled surveillance cameras, falsified guard logs, and Epstein's explicable removal from suicide watch just days before his death defy easy explanation. Further deepening the enigma, Epstein had reportedly voiced fears for his life, even claiming weeks earlier that someone had tried to harm him. His sudden death left the truth about his influential associates and their potential secrets cloaked in shadows, inviting relentless speculation.
Yeah, we did a whole episode. I can't believe it's already been 6 years. So we did a whole episode on the Epstein, the 10 top clues that it might not have been a suicide, and that was a fun episode to do. Even those who don't believe or subscribe or talk about quote-unquote conspiracy theories, put it this way, it was a perfect storm for him to do this to himself. Everything lined up for him to make it happen to himself. It's almost like he knew, okay, the guards aren't there, the logs are going to be falsified, the cameras are off. Perfect. Okay, here I go, guys. Here I go. That's what makes this crazy, is that it's almost either he knew or he was just one of the most lucky suiciders ever.
The stars aligned for him.
Yeah.
He just wanted to hang himself in private.
In private peace. Of all the people who never got to stand trial and to say, think about that for a second, Jay. He never got to go on the stand and say, hey, if I'm going down, I'm taking people with me. We've seen the TV show 100 times, right? We've seen the movie 100 times. If I'm going down, I'm taking them down with me.
Exactly.
He never got to do that.
And what I find fascinating is Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Jeffrey Epstein's partner in crime. Mm-hmm. She's in jail for basically the same stuff. But yet there's nobody. I can't traffic drugs and be convicted of trafficking drugs if there's nobody that I traffic drugs to. You know what I mean? Who are the people that she trafficked children to?
Yeah.
Where are those people? How can you be convicted yet have nobody who's you're selling this too? And she didn't sound like she took anybody down. Who was the clientele that she was trafficking children to?
I don't know.
Jeffrey's gone. He's gone. He can't testify. Ghislaine went through a trial. She's in jail. Is there any mention of who she trafficked the children to? What was the evidence against her?
Yeah, she's an interesting one. I feel like we don't talk enough about her. She seems to be like a fascinating story that I would like to know more about. Is there any books written about her history, her life?
Her dad was apparently a part of Mossad.
Okay.
She has siblings. Her siblings have interesting stories. I shouldn't say stories. Lives.
Right. Accounts.
As well. Yeah. Just there's something there. Her dad owned one of the biggest newspapers in England. He was also apparently a double agent. He defrauded the newspaper. people of all their, what would you call it, the benefits or whatever, and then found floating in the ocean beside his boat. So her dad even committed suicide.
Jeez.
When she was at Chelsea Clinton's wedding.
Sure. Sure. Why not? Why not invite her?
How is it that all these people are oddly connected? Just innocently, though. Oh, I didn't know. We just invited her. She's just one of thousands of people that we invite to our daughter's wedding.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway, so back to Jeffrey, though.
What was in his brain? The stories he could have told, eh?
Oh, yeah. And he had that, I don't know about cloning, but that he had a ranch in New Mexico where he was trying to create a pure race. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down.
Pure race, nobody lives past 14.
Yep.
All right. Okay. For the next one, Jay, we've got Sandra Bland. You ever heard of Sandra Bland?
No.
She didn't have a very exciting life. Get it? Okay, bad joke. July 2015, she died. She was a passionate advocate against police brutality. And her death did send shockwaves across the nation 10 years ago. 3 days after being pulled over in Texas for failing to signal a lane change, a minor infraction that escalated into a heated confrontation, and her arrest. The 20-year-old was found hanging in her jail cell. So it went from she failed to signal a lane change, Jason. It escalated to her being arrested, and later that day, she was hanging in a jail cell. And she was a passionate advocate against police brutality. Authorities swiftly ruled her death a suicide, citing her past struggles with mental health. Yet, for many, this explanation rang hollow. How could a vibrant woman brimming with plans for a new job at Prairie View A&M University abruptly end her life is the question they had. Glaring inconsistencies in the official account only deepened the skepticism. Conflicting police statements, suspiciously edited jail footage.
Of course. How's it these cameras never work?
I know. And unanswered questions about Bland's treatment in custody stoked public distrust. Her family, pointing to her recent optimism and determination, vehemently challenged the investigation's findings. So they're basically, look, we know our daughter. She showed no signs of, I want to kill myself, even if she was arrested. Like, why would she do this to herself? Bland's outspoken activism, often shared through bold videos condemning police misconduct, most notably her vocal criticism of the 2014 Ferguson unrest following Michael Brown's death at the hands of police, led many to wonder, was she targeted to silence her powerful voice? Her death, Jason, remains a haunting rallying cry, shrouded in suspicion and unresolved questions. The truth of the matter is she was an advocate against police brutality. I agree. There should not be police brutality. There should not be anyone's being brutal. There shouldn't be doctor brutality. So there shouldn't be, humans shouldn't be mean to humans. I agree with Sandra. No one should do this. She was a powerful voice in that community, and good for her. There was police cam footage. So it wasn't like the body cam footage is not public. It is public, but there are suspicions that the camera footage has also been altered, according to my
It seems like it's specifically in the jail.
The body cam footage as well was altered. The arrest footage. Let's just pretend the police targeted her. Let's just pretend. And they said, you know what? You're a real noisy person. We don't like what you have to say about police. Well, fine. And they arrested her for a very minor infraction. Okay, cool. Fine. Okay. Not fine. I hear you. Why did she decide, that's it? The only way to make my voice heard is to kill myself. That's what's weird.
Maybe she felt like her voice wasn't enough. Clearly, here she has been arrested. I don't know what escalated to her being arrested. I'm not sure how arguing over a signal change can lead to that. I don't know if she refused to cooperate to a point where it became confrontational, like a physical confrontation, or she refused to. I just don't know enough.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is she was arrested, and shortly thereafter her arrest, she decided to end her life, which is sad all around. At the end of the day, now, of course, the alternate, Jay, is, did the police kill her? So that's a brutal accusation too. So this one's tricky.
It all would hinge on the actual arrest. Was it a targeted arrest?
Yeah.
And they just made up an accusation? Or was it an arrest that seemed, without seeing any footage or understanding the interaction, or did it seem excessive to arrest her for how she was behaving? I just don't know that detail, and I think that would help me better understand what could have led down to this suicide.
Yeah, who knows?
Very sad.
At the end of the day, it's sad that someone's life was taken. Oh, these are sad. Hey, sorry, let me rephrase that. Jeffrey Epstein's I'm not so sad about, but everyone else is.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is we just don't have enough information anymore that can come from him.
Yeah, it's sad that we don't get the truth out of him, but I'm not sad that he's dead, of course.
No, yeah. Okay, so Gary Webb, a tenacious investigative journalist, thrust himself in the spotlight with his explosive Dark Alliance series, alleging CIA ties to drug trafficking to fund anti-communist forces in Latin America. His revelations, published in the 1990s, unleashed a firestorm of controversy, drawing vicious backlash and personal attacks that derailed his career and took a heavy toll on his mental health. In December 2004, Webb was found dead in his California apartment, his life extinguished by 2 gunshot wounds to the head, a death officially ruled a suicide. The shocking nature of his demise, 2 self-inflicted gunshots, an extraordinarily rare occurrence, ignited immediate skepticism. Critics argue that Webb had been systematically discredited and ostracized for unearthing uncomfortable truths, pointing to the implausibility of such a suicide. Whispers of foul play grew louder as supporters recounted alleged threats and intimidation from shadowy, government-linked figures in the months before his death. For many, Webb's end remains a haunting enigma.
Okay. So I did a little bit of research here. I asked, in all the gunshot suicides, how often is there 2 shots? And it is extremely rare, but it has happened. Basically, the person doing it is that committed. I don't know how that works, where you're so determined to end your life, essentially, Jason, where the first shot didn't take and you're like, I still really want this to happen. And you do it again. Wild that you're in that, excuse the pun, headspace. So that's the question. Did he fire a shot, Jay, and didn't take, and he did it again and the second one took?
I'd have to see exactly where the 2 are coming from direction-wise. That would be the only thing to help me better understand.
Gary himself would have to make, you know what I mean? Like he takes it and he's like, okay, I'm still conscious and I'm bleeding somewhere here and I've got to do it again.
Like second guess yourself on the first one and then realize you're in a very bad spot. And so you make sure the second one works.
I don't know how the brain works, or who knows, maybe you're still like it's like a muscle spasm. You walk off too.
Yeah.
So the 2 self-inflicted shots, I'm sure the coroner, if they were truthful coroners, are like, no, this is what killed them. They would have to determine, of course, if the weapon's there. But suicides have been faked, or murders have been faked as suicides. This is, you see it in movies. There's a reason, because it's happened. But at the very end of the day, somebody who's you could almost argue, was it the CIA or was it actually the drug runners in Latin America? They're like, hey, leave us alone. We like having the drugs. We're making money off this thing, man. It could have been the drug dealers who did this.
Why are our governments so implicated in so much garbage? Yeah. Why does him, as an investigative journalist, have to talk about these things that our governments are participating in? He shouldn't have to be investigatively.
His investigation should come up clean.
Exactly. That's my point.
No, there's no ties. I looked into it and look at that.
There's nothing there. There's nothing. There's literally nothing there. Our government is clean.
It's clean.
But there's no ties. And over and over again, when people put a spotlight on these type of things, why are we involved in these things as a government?
And you wonder why people are disenfranchised. One wonders why people might feel disheartened. Yeah. It feels like between Epstein and the CIA drug trafficking and from Watergate, it's always just stuff. Why can't we just fix the potholes and get pencils and paper in schools? Why can't we
have clean, functioning hospitals?
Yeah. No. We got to fund drug trafficking. Okay. Maybe Gary was just a big fat liar. He was a liar, Jason. He didn't discover anything. He just wants to smear the CIA. The next one, Jay, is this one's sad. This one's sad.
I'm familiar with this one.
Again, this one's not a suicide. Hey, this one's a good old-fashioned murder. All right, so in the pre-dawn hours of July 10th, 2016, Seth Rich, A young 27-year-old Democratic National Committee staffer was gunned down in a quiet Washington, D.C. neighborhood. Authorities labeled it a botched robbery. But the fact that Rich's wallet, watch, and phone remained untouched cast a long shadow of doubt over the official story. They did say it was botched, so they got away with murder, whoever they are, but they didn't take anything with them. They just killed poor Seth. In the charged atmosphere of the 2016 presidential election, his murder swiftly became a lightning rod for conspiracy theories, weaving a web of intrigue that persists to this day. So one such theory, Jay, despite repeated debunking by law enforcement, suggested that Rich had leaked sensitive DNC emails to WikiLeaks, potentially altering the election's trajectory. Some of the leaks were emails exposed internal DNC bias toward Hillary over Bernie. Another one was a DNC CFO Brad Marshall wrote about highlighting Sanders' possible atheism to appeal to Southern Baptist voters, while DNC Chair Debbie Wasserman Schultz called Sanders' campaign manager a damn liar over a Nevada convention dispute. So just a lot of ugly emails that were leaked.
It boiled down to them exposing getting rid of Bernie Sanders.
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than going through the process of electing one of the two in a legitimate way. They got rid of Sanders, which would allow Hillary to just walk into.
That's right. The leaks deepened distrust among Sanders supporters, some of whom felt that the primaries were rigged, potentially dampening Democratic voter turnout for Clinton. They also amplified Republican narratives of a corrupt DNC, boosting Donald Trump's campaign momentum, which some argue contributed to Clinton's narrow loss. The Mueller investigation later attributed the leaks to Russian hackers. Yeah. So very sad that this guy leaks these things and he's gunned down. Bad timing. He got robbed and killed.
It probably would be a podcast series about all the people who have been suicided / murdered around the Clintons. It's insane.
Let's just do a fun thing right now.
Do not become a friend of the Clintons if you want to live a long, healthy life. If there's any misstep, you could be done.
So I just asked how many people known to the Clintons have been killed or suicided. Just give me the name and number. 33 people.
Yeah.
33 people, Jason. Suicide, drug overdose, suicide, murder, plane crash, suicide, car accident, murder, plane crash, car accident, suicide, murder, suicide. Like, whole plane crash. I'm turning 50 this year. You just turned 50.
Your thoughts going exactly where my thoughts going. Exactly.
So I barely know anyone that's died of anything. Like, how is it this is just 2 people and they have 33 people in high. These are just like some fentanyl addicts on the street. You know what I mean? These are like people in government and intelligent, educated to do, and they're all dead. Do not be friends with these people. Do not send them a Christmas card.
No. Do not go to their daughter's wedding.
Now, it says here, this list reflects names frequently mentioned in conspiracy theories, but official investigations typically rule these deaths as suicide, accidents, or unrelated crimes. No direct evidence links.
Of course they do. Why would they link them to an actual crime? Yeah. If you say suicide, it absolves everything. Oh, okay.
Okay. Here's what's funny is if we heard of this kind of thing back in the King Henry days, we wouldn't bat an eye. If King Henry took out his competition, you know what I mean? We'd be like, oh, that was back in the 1600s. That was very, but humans don't do that now. Like, I love how just because we have
split them poison.
Yeah, they did all the time.
You're right. We don't bat an eye. We just go.
Nobody says it's a conspiracy theory. Nobody says that King Henry or whoever, whatever, Genghis Khan, whoever it was. We always just say, oh, that's just they were bad people.
They wanted to protect their power. They wanted to protect their riches.
But I love because we have microwave dinners and Super Bowls that human behavior doesn't exist today. We've absolved ourselves of committing those crimes. Yeah. Okay, that's what you have to decide, folks. It's like sometimes there is fire. Like when there's enough smoke, maybe there's a fire, maybe. This is what you have to decide. You have to decide, does Seth Rich, back to Seth Rich, number 5. At the end of the day, Jay, that's the official story. It was a botched robbery. Nothing was taken. He's dead. It sucks. There you go. That's all it is. That's the official story. And you have to decide, listener, if that's true or not. Okay. Jay, you got the next one.
Okay. On February 2nd, 2013, Philip Marshall, a former airline captain and provocative author who boldly questioned the official 9/11 narrative, was found dead in a secluded California home in the gated Forest Meadows community, alongside his 2 teenage children, Alex, 17, and Michaela, 14, and the family dog. Authorities quickly deemed it a murder-suicide, claiming Marshall shot his children, the dog, and then himself, each with a single bullet to the head from a 9mm Glock. Yet, for those who knew him, this chilling conclusion clashed with the man they described, a stable, optimistic father, deeply devoted to his family, casting a long shadow of doubt over the official story. Marshall's books, including The Big Bamboozled, 9/11, and The War on Terror, alleged U.S. government complicity in Saudi connections to the 9/11 attacks, earning him both admirers and enemies. Conspiracy theories swirled that his death was too convenient, with some speculating he had uncovered explosive new evidence implicating powerful figures or agencies. Adding to the intrigue, Marshall had reportedly confided to friends about possessing sensitive information tying Saudi operatives to 9/11 and expressed fears for his safety during his book's production. The absence of a clear motive, coupled with claims from neighbors of suspicious activity like men in black seen near his home hours before, left many questioning.
This one's brutal. And Jay, after the book is published, he decides to kill himself, the family dog, and his 2 kids. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Now, you could argue maybe he thought the world wasn't worth living in. You could argue his government lied to him and the world's an evil, dangerous place. So maybe the safest thing to do is to take out your family. Rather than live in this corrupt world, let's leave it.
Yeah.
This one sucks. Those poor kids.
Was he afraid that the people would get his children?
Every one of these, there's a bit of a stank that has come up that people go, is that the true story, or there seems to be more? It's unfortunate. A lot of people off themselves every day. It's a horrible thing that when people, like, we're not making light of anyone doing this to themselves. No. So what I'm saying is, these are stories of people connected to some degree to, was it just them doing it, or was the things they were connected to, were those the things that took them out because of what they had? Information, it seems like what they had. Yeah, this seems to be they're all like cage rattlers, if that makes sense, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, completely. I wish I knew a little bit more about this Philip guy.
Yeah. Where was his wife in the matter? I didn't know if my research came up in that. Were they divorced? Like, where's the wife in this? Is she a surviving member? Did she come home from work and find? Ugh, I don't know. Yeah. The dog. Why take out the dog? Maybe that's the key. This one might just be that he felt, because unfortunately, when some people get so wrapped up in this, the whole world's evil. You know what I mean?
That's yeah.
The fact that he took out the family dog, you could argue he doesn't want to leave the dog with no one to take care of it. So it was a mercy kill to the dog as well. Yeah, one to think about for our pick of which one's the most official true story. Okay. All right, the next one, Jay, Danny Casolaro. He was another journalist, and he was chasing a labyrinth conspiracy he called the Octopus, and he was found dead in a West Virginia motel bathtub, his wrists slashed in a scene authorities swiftly labeled as suicide. Danny believed he was on the verge of exposing a global web of corruption tying powerful figures in banking, government, and intelligence to scandals like the Iran-Contra and Inslaw affair, a software theft case he linked to high-level misconduct. His relentless pursuit promised explosive revelations, but it ended in tragedy before he could share his findings. Those closest to Danny painted a starkly different picture from the official narrative. They described him as a buoyant, brimming with confidence about his discoveries, and openly fearful of assassination himself, Danny having warned his friends of potential threats. The mysterious disappearance of his meticulously gathered investigative notes, his life's work, only deepened the skepticism. For many, the chilling circumstances of his death pointed not to despair, but to calculated silencing, fueling suspicions of a cover-up to protect the untouchables elite. So another one, again, banks, government. This is 91.
This is basically almost pre-internet.
Yeah.
So this would be like really investigative reporting.
The Inslaw affair. So that was the software theft case that was linked to high-level misconduct. He was on to something called the Octopus, but he decided no more. He sliced his wrists in the bathtub at a motel, and all of his notes and life work, I guess he hid, which would be odd behavior to keep meticulous notes and wanting to expose these people and decide, no, I'd rather kill myself and then hide what I wrote so nobody would read it.
Were all his notes taken?
Apparently all of them. His life's work gone.
It's kind of like Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
He dies and they ransack his place or whatever and take all their, never to be seen really again. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Weird how that happens.
Yeah, it's weird that he thought the world wasn't worth living in, which is unfortunate. And that's the official story. It's just odd. Before he offs himself, he decides that all this work I've done, I don't want anyone to read it, I guess. What an odd thing to do. It's very odd. Yeah. Okay.
So, December 31st, 2010, the nation was stunned when the body of John Wheeler, a distinguished Pentagon official and trusted advisor to President Reagan and Bush, was discovered in a Delaware landfill. A decorated Vietnam veteran with deep ties to national security, Wheeler had vanished days earlier under eerie circumstances. Surveillance footage captured him in the final hours, disorientated and stumbling through buildings and parking garages, clutching a shoe and pleading for help, claiming his briefcase, potentially containing sensitive documents, had been stolen. Authorities pointed to erratic behavior in the days prior, citing disputes with neighbors over a construction project and unverified claims of Wheeler planning to use incendiary devices. Yet these explanations failed to quiet the storm of speculation surrounding his death. Wheeler's illustrious career, steeped in classified realms like cyber warfare, strategy, and biochemical defense, fueled theories that his demise was no accident. Many wondered if he had stumbled upon secrets too dangerous to keep, perhaps tied to espionage or covert operations, or if he was silenced to prevent a leak that could unravel powerful interests. The haunting image of a man of his stature reduced to a landfill grave, coupled with the murky details of his final days, left a chilling mystery. Somebody who has access to information, it haunts them, maybe makes them act or behave erratically. Maybe he was just scared. Maybe. Yeah. But then how did he get from wherever he was to a landfill? That's a big, I just can't. I was going to walk into a landfill.
Yeah, that's what makes that one odd. It's where he ends up that's odd. Yeah.
There's a disposal of a body. That's not somebody just wandering into a landfill. What was the cause of death?
The cause of death was state medical examiner's office ruled his death a homicide caused by assault and blunt force trauma. Autopsy reports noted severe injuries, including a punctured lung, broken ribs. Oh, he was crushed from the trash truck compactor.
So he was murdered somewhere, put into a dump truck, or maybe a garbage bin.
Autopsy reports noted severe injuries, including a punctured lung, broken ribs, and the bleeding in the head, which were inconsistent with injuries from a trash truck or compactor. He took a beating and then dumped. Weird, eh?
If I beat up somebody and killed them and then threw them in the dump, I mean, would they just a camera out of the landfill? There's cameras everywhere. What year was this again?
2010. It wasn't.
There'd be cameras at a landfill as you go in and out.
So what they could have done they dumped them in a bin, and the bin gets dumped.
And then the bin go into the dump truck,
and the dump truck dumps it in the landfill. Ugh, it's sad. He's probably a husband and father. It's just sad.
But again, coincidentally, these people are murdered.
He was murdered at the very least. Another high-ranking guy. We got Deborah Jean Palfrey. You know her? She was notoriously known as the DC Madam.
Yeah.
She ran an escort service that allegedly served a roster of Washington's elite, from senators to high-powered lobbyists. After her 2008 conviction on racketeering charges, Palfrey boldly threatened to exactly what Epstein was going to do. This is what I mean. But she said it out loud. She goes, "Hey, you're taking me down. I've got names."
I wasn't ever brought up during the trial. You can't be a DC Madam with no people that you're surfacing. How could those names not come up? We know you're doing this because we know that you are with X, Y, and Z.
I don't know. I hear you. So Palfrey boldly threatened to unveil her client list, hinting at revelations that could humiliate prominent political figures. Just days later, on May 1st, 2008, she was found hanged in a shed behind her mother's Florida home. Her death swiftly ruled a suicide. The official verdict met immediate skepticism. Palfrey had repeatedly declared in interviews that she would never take her own life, even warning that any suicide would be a sign of foul play. Her death, conveniently timed to silence the potential exposure of influential clients, fueled suspicions of a politically orchestrated assassination. Yeah. So she specifically said, Jay, on interviews and shows that if I die, it wasn't me. Is it possible? Yes. But she made it clear that she was not going to do that to herself.
Yeah.
But then she did it anyways. Yeah. All right. You got the last one, Jay.
Okay. On May 8th, 1996, the body of Officer Terrence Yake, a decorated Oklahoma City police officer and military veteran hailed as a hero for his fearless rescues during the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, was discovered in a remote field miles from his abandoned, blood-splattered vehicle. His body bore deep cuts, bruises, rope marks, suggesting he had been bound, and a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Despite the savage nature of his injuries, authorities quickly ruled the death a suicide, a verdict that stunned those who knew him and ignited a firestorm of suspicion. Terrence, the first officer on the scene of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building bombing, had saved multiple lives amid the chaos, earning widespread admiration. Yet in the months before his death, he confided to friends and family about disturbing developments. He was being shadowed by unknown figures, possibly federal agents, and felt intense pressure to stay silent. Terrence was reportedly assembling a dossier of evidence challenging the official bombing narrative, hinting at a broader conspiracy involving undisclosed players. That dossier, like his peace of mind, vanished without a trace. Witnesses noted his growing paranoia fueled by relentless surveillance and cryptic warnings. Some claimed he was on the verge of exposing explosive truths. His family, backed by independent investigators, remained steadfast in their belief that Terrence was silenced to safeguard powerful interests.
He was discovered in a remote field, miles from his abandoned, blood-splattered vehicle. His body bore deep cuts, bruises, rope marks suggesting he had been bound, and a fatal gunshot wound to his head. Suicide.
Yeah.
What? Come on. He shot himself in his car, bled in his car, and then died in the field, I guess. What's amazing, he was a hero. He was literally saving people's lives from the building. He's one of the first responders, so he saw things.
Yeah, he saw things that, as a first responder that don't add up to what was being told as the narrative in the public.
What was another big event where first responders were talking about a narrative that didn't add up to the official report afterwards? It's weird. I'm trying to think of another one. Anyways, so here's another one where they're saying things that I didn't experience, and he started questioning what people were saying, and he decided to kill himself instead. Okay. All right. This is a tough.
It is tough.
This is a tough one. We're not going to go through them all again necessarily, but I'll give the names here. So there was Michael Hastings. He was the investigative journalist. Jeffrey Epstein. Sandra Bland, the activist who got arrested. Gary Webb, another journalist. The CIA drug guy. We've got the staffer who leaked the emails, Seth Rich. We've got Philip Marshall. He's the airline captain who shot his family and the dog. We got Danny, who slit his wrists in a motel bathtub riding the octopus. We've got John Wheeler, who was in a landfill. And we've got the DC Madam, Deborah. And then lastly, we have Officer Terrence, who was a hero rescuing people from the Oklahoma City bombing. And he decided to kill himself in a weird way. Okay. So Jason, the official narratives.
Oh, man.
Which is the
most likely to
not be, because boy, this is weird. This is a tough one because there's two ways of doing this, because I definitely have a pick for what I think might just be the official narrative. Like I think
which one is the official narrative?
Okay, so we can start with that. The one that I believe is the one that could most likely be, this is what happened. This is the guy that killed himself and his family and the dog. And the reason why I'm leaning towards that is the dog. I think that's the key, in that he saw the world. This is me speaking for a dead person, but he saw the world as a lie. And he didn't want his family raised in that lie, in that world. So he took out his family in that mercy killing. It's completely insane, but I'm in the mind of somebody who was mentally health was declined. And he took his children and the dog's life because the dog would not be taken care of by anybody, and himself. This has happened in human history where people have taken their own life thinking they're saving a greater purpose. A mercy kill of his family. Yeah.
So if people were to have killed him, I could see them killing the family dog too, to make it look like exactly what you described.
Yeah, I know. That's what makes that a horribly beautiful execution, is because it paints this story. I got tricked. I'm getting tricked, because the other ones are just, they're just too many. Like obviously the last one, like Officer Terrence, like what? That's the weirdest suicide I've ever heard of. He had deep cuts and bruises. It sounds like he was beaten and gagged and tied and then dead in a field away from his vehicle. Come on. There's easier ways to kill yourself than to beat yourself up first. You know what I mean? So I think the murder-suicide of the family, to me, of these 10 stories, is the most likely to be true. I don't know how true it is, but if I had to pick one story that might just have happened as the official report, that's my pick. Jay, which one do you think is the most likely that it could be true, that this is the official report?
I hear those arguments, and there's a few that I can do something similar with.
Yeah.
I think the one that you just brought up was jumping to the forefront, but I'm going to say Sandra Bland. And I only say that because I don't know enough information about her arrest and what that looked like. But I can see her going, just to put an exclamation mark or a point to her advocacy of police brutality and the impact it has on people's lives. It's a statement.
Right.
In a fit of rage, or maybe if she was on suicide watch or whatever, that she could have had a moment to calm down or whatever. But I can see somebody going, I'll show them.
Yeah. Yeah, in a martyrish type way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People put themselves on fire for global warming or whatever.
You're right. This could have been the ultimate, the police did this to me, investigate them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a valid narrative. That's a valid narrative.
I hate having to make these choices amongst these terrible outcomes, but I can visualize people who are very passionate advocates for particular causes.
Sure.
Sometimes have moments of disconnect, and maybe that's one.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Yeah, interesting stuff. Okay. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there's a cloud. And today for Ryan, it was the airline pilot who killed himself and his whole family and the family dog. And for Jason, it was the poor woman who hung herself for narrative purpose, to show how police brutality is what it is.